Tony Messenger, author, Metro columnist, and Pulitzer Prize winner, visited MHS for a book talk. In this section, Messenger discusses how to research like a journalist.
So one of the things that I've got a son who's a freshman in college, and so I've given him this advice recently is to do the things you want to do in life, you have to frequently fight through some things that you don't really want to do. You know, high school is one of those things. College is one of those things. But on a daily basis, you know, in the work life, having to do meetings is one of those things. You know, I got to go to that meeting before I can be free to spend the time, you know, doing what I want to do. So the nature of research and writing sometimes is that you have to fight through the parts of the process that you don't like to get to the good stuff. I mean, one of the things that I love about being a journalist is just visiting with people, spending time with people, getting to know them, getting to know what makes them tick, getting to hear them share their life with me and trust me with their stories, and then for me to be able to figure out how to write about it. But to get to that time, I've got to make sure that I've done my research so that I can ask good, smart, intelligent questions. And so you have to schedule your time and fight through some of those things that you don't necessarily want to do in order to get to the part that you like. I mean, hopefully anybody who ends up in a writing career enjoys the writing part, but even writers historically are kind of known for sometimes hating the process. They love the end game. Writing my book was really painful. There was a lot of failure in writing my book. I turned an entire manuscript of my book in thinking I was done, and the final result is completely different because I had a really good editor who helped me realize where some things didn't connect and where the narrative wasn't quite right and where I had to move this part to this part and this part to that part. And move things around. So there's a lot of failure in writing before you get to the success. You have to fight through those things. But the research in particular is really important to do on the front end as much as possible. I mean, you're constantly always researching when you're writing, because you interview somebody, you get some new information, and all of a sudden you're going back and redoing your research, or you're going back and getting another document, or you're going back and interviewing somebody else. But the more you can use that research to elevate your own knowledge, now your interviews are much better, because you know a lot more about a topic in order to just ask somebody good questions rather than just open-ended, hey, you know, any of you who are sports fans, you watch the end of a football game, and the sideline reporter, who isn't very good, just sort of starts at the end of the game, tell me about, and, you know, rather than asking an informed question about why your quarterback made that boneheaded play on third down. I'm a Denver Broncos fan, so I'm used to quarterbacks making boneheaded plays on third down. But so you have to do that research to educate your questions and get to the part where when you're ready to write, you know the material up here, and you've got it in your notebook or on your recorder or wherever, you know, whatever medium you happen to use, and you can be confident when you sit down in the writing process. The worst thing in the world as a writer is to sit down in the writing process and you're not confident in the material. You're not sure if it's there. You're not sure if you know it. Then all of a sudden it's really hard to write. Okay, so I'm gonna allow you to break the whatever rules your teachers probably normally have. If you take out your phone and go to stltoday.com right now, my column for Sunday just posted, and it's about the Sunshine Law in Missouri. And it's about a case that I did some reporting on that has now become a court case in Missouri. Unfortunately, got a really bad ruling on it this week. But a lot of what I do in terms of my research is using the Sunshine Law or Freedom of Information Act law in terms of federal. And those are accountability laws that allow citizens to keep track of their government. Those are the laws that open up school board meetings, so you can just go to the school board meeting and see what they're doing. They're the laws that allow you to get records from any government body that minutes from their meetings and contracts that they have, and all of the different things that reporters do to figure out what the real story is. And so that's a lot of what I do. I file sunshine law requests, maybe not every week, but at least every month. I'm regularly filing sunshine law requests to get emails from public officials, to get documents from public officials. And then also I spend a lot of time on court websites getting court records, because court documents are really good for explaining things that are going on either in a civil lawsuit or in a criminal justice case, in a criminal case. And so that's a big part of what we do. I mean, there are times when I just start my research in the same way that you might start your research on a topic, and that's by pulling out my phone and opening up Google and doing some searches. Sometimes that's how we find information out. I mean, just an example of what happens is, a city hires a new police chief. And all of a sudden, I want to know something about that new police chief. And you start Googling that new police chief, and you find out he was fired 2 jobs ago because he had a DUI or because of, this, that, or the other thing. I mean, that's really often the beginning of reporting, is just figuring out what is it that they aren't telling us. People who do what I do, who are journalists, tend to have sort of a cynical mind. And so we always assume that there's something that somebody isn't telling us. And the way we often get that answer before we interview them is getting the public documents that explain what they really think, explain what really happened. So that then when you're interviewing them and you ask them, so why did you give this contract to your brother instead of this other company that bid lower? And they explain why, and you're like, well, actually, in this email that you sent to the mayor, you said this. And that's how all of a sudden an interview becomes much more informed, because you got your public documents before you started asking them questions. So the sunshine law is really important as it relates to that. And it's something that we all can use. There's no element of the sunshine law that says my request is any different than your request or your teacher's request or a lawyer's request. The sunshine law teaches us all, or treats us all the same. We're citizens of the state of Missouri. And if we want to find out some information about what our public local government is doing, then we ought to be able to find out that information.